A very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord, and in our news, recommended names for new judicial appointments to be in the Prime Minister's hands soon. Barbados taking an impressive contingent to Caribbean Festa 14 in Trinidad and Tobago. Consumer protection agencies looking into complaints about some cadooment bans. And in sports, we'll review the performance of Barbados at the Pan Am Games after finishing 24th with one medal.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
In our top story, the Judicial Appointments Committee has wrapped up its work, and the names of a new set of judges are to be forwarded to Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley for consideration. This from Attorney General Dale Marshall as he addressed the Barbados Association of Journalists and Media Workers, or BARJAM, at the annual general meeting and elections at the Argentine Embassy. Lisa Broom tells us more.
Attorney General Dale Marshall says the names of the prospective jurists should be in the hands of Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley within the next few days. He could not disclose the names of those recommended, but says interest has come from Barbados and the region to the Sir David Simmons-led committee.
For many years, Barbadians served in high judicial office, not just within the region, but in the outer reaches of the Commonwealth, Ghana and other places. It's important for us to, as we try to recruit new judges in a transparent process, to reach out to the entire Commonwealth and try to bring back to Barbados the best minds that we can find so that we can grapple with the issue of the courts.
Mr. Marshall also spoke about the Integrity in Public Life Bill, which should be laid in Parliament in October. He says it hasn't been stalled, but a series of unexpected challenges held up its completion.
What we have now is much improved over what we originally put on the table. And any government has to be always willing to stop and say, can we do this better? And not just push it through because we've committed to do X, Y, or Z. The areas in which it has been improved, it is a more coherent piece of legislation. As we've looked at the issue of corruption in Barbados, which, believe you me, keeps me awake most nights. We've had to find a better way of dealing with our legislative framework.
In another major development, Mr. Marshall says the medicinal marijuana bill will be laid in Parliament tomorrow and debated on August 30th.
Our challenge will have been, how do you move from a stage where cannabis has, for the last 100 years, been seen as, well, less than that, as something that's downright illegal, and before that, nobody bothered about it. Generations ago, cannabis was just like bush tea. Nobody thought that it was illegal. It was just something that you use.
The AG says once the legislation is passed, government will be ready to issue licenses to people who qualify. He notes that while some CARICOM countries already have legislation in place, Barbados prefers to take its time and get the right policy for the country. Lisa Broom, CBC News.
Barbados will be shipping a cahable pot of emerging and established artists and artistes to represent the island at Caribbean Festa 14 in Trinidad and Tobago. The National Cultural Foundation presented part of its 55-member delegation to the media this morning at its West Terrace headquarters. Our Shane Jones reports.
The 55 delegates heading off to the regional showpiece slated for August 16th to 25th include some of the best talent the island has to offer, along with government officials led by Culture Minister John King and NCF CEO Carol Roberts-Reefer. Chief Cultural Officer at the NCF, Andrea Wells, says Barbados will be participating in fine arts, fashion, craft and gourmet, as well as literary, visual arts and performing arts.
It was determined that the auditions, while we had shortlisted a lot of acts for possible inclusion, that we would enhance the team for that presentation, along with the theatrical representation, remounting of the piece Good for the Goose, with some of the talent seen via audition.
Country Night at Caribbean Festa usually has a heavy focus on music, but this year Barbados plans to change things up with the theatrical presentation of Journey to the Last Cane, telling the story of sugar Sugar, and Barbados.
We're taking the musical forms from tuck, spooge, all the way down to bashment, along with the theatrical presentations of the likes of Miss Sonia Williams, Mr. Hira Gibbons, and Mr. Anderson Blood Armstrong, who will not only showcase his talents as a musician, but also as an actor. And we're taking that story and mixing it with the wonderful choreographies of Keisha Dulridge and the musical direction of Ryan Boyce, and bringing a fantastic combination of both the folk concert of the opening gala and the celebration concert of the opening gala.
Two-time reigning junior monarch Kwan will be performing at his first Caribbean Festa.
I thought I was only going to be performing calypso traveling, so when I heard performing maybe 3 or 4 songs, I was performing a spooge song. So, I was like, I can't sing the spooge, man. But, I'm really happy when I realized, I can get this done. I was very happy.
The team leaves on August 15th. Shane Jones, CBC News.
Well, as Barbados joined the worldwide celebrations for International Youth Day, 16 young Barbadians received awards for their outstanding work in culture, sports, service, and entrepreneurship. Youth Minister Adrian Ford made the presentations this afternoon during the Youth Summer Explosion at the Garfield Sobers Gymnasium. During his address, he reiterated government's commitment to young people.
We are going to give you the opportunity to go after your dreams. And I'm saying to you, we have opened up new dimensions for you as it relates to the blue economy, as it relates to the renewable energy sector, the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology, which will allow you to create your own destinies and your own niche market. So young persons, you have everything to go after the Bajan dream.
A local summer camp geared at intervening to save 14 and 15-year-olds from being lured into drugs, gangs, and other deviant activity has been launched. It's Camp Enterprise, and that 2-week camp will be held at the Grantley Adams Memorial School. Rianne Phillips has more.
Over the next 2 weeks, these 50 Grantley Adams Memorial students will benefit from several interactive sessions tailored for their spiritual, emotional, and physical development. The initiative is the brainchild of Faith Marshall Harris and her Faith Marshall Harris Sandy Lane Charitable Trust Helpline.
We're also going to be dealing with anger management in a session entitled Sticks and Stones and Words Matter. CBC, I have to pay great tribute to them. They're here this morning. And they're also coming back to teach you about elocution and diction in a session entitled, How Do You Speak?
And school officials have welcomed Camp Inspire as it complements their student development plan and targets for graduates.
They would have at least, at minimum, achieved or been exposed to the following. They would have completed, we believe, the electronic document preparation and management at the CSEC level, or quite recently we found some qualifications at the City and Guilds. We expect them to complete the 4 employability units of the Caribbean Vocational Qualification, which speak to being able to work with others, effective communication in the workplace, health and safety in the workplace. We expect them to have completed an English and an examination, either at the CSEC level, the City and Guilds level, or the CCSLC level, and that they would have completed a social studies and integrated science. That's the bare minimum.
Camp Inspire will also feature fun activities such as tours and a tea party. Rianne Phillips, CBC News.
The Fair Trading Commission has promised a firm response following consumer complaints about costumes and packages offered by some Kadooment bands for 2019. And this was one of the points touched on as representatives from various consumer-focused organizations discussed customer service and protection on CBC TV 8's The People's Business. Lorna Jones reports.
Although the 2019 Crop Over Festival has received a passing grade overall, some consumers were left wanting when it came to the Grand Kadooment experience. During CBC TV8's The People's Business program, the Fair Trading Commission's Consumer Protection Officer, Julia Regis, noted that they were proactive in publishing guidelines for the band houses this year. However, she revealed there were still issues with some consumers not getting the costume or package they paid for.
We still got some complaints, and those will be addressed. We're going to be addressing them quite firmly because we recognize there are some repeated band leaders who would have been doing the same thing that we would have spoken about. So those are some of the issues that we're going to be really addressing for Cropover. It's one of our biggest festivals, so we want to make sure that when consumers go and to enjoy themselves, what they pay for, that they will get.
Ms. Regis says in cases where the consumer requests a refund, he or she will be referred to the Office of Public Counsel. And their investigations officer, Paul Leach, says the festival is too important to our economy and culture to let issues like these slide.
In terms of working on the cultural industries, we have to get our program together in terms of dealing with that, because we don't want persons coming in from overseas having these bad experiences and then they're taking that back to the rest of the world.
Meanwhile, consumer analyst Reverend Malcolm Gibbs Tate made this general recommendation for consumers seeking redress.
Whenever a consumer has a complaint, the first person they should go to is the place where they do the business. Deal with them. Try to get them to rectify the problem. If they don't, then you go to the relevant agencies who should deal with it.
Also on the panel were the FTC's Director of Consumer Protection, David Leslie Ward, the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs Acting Director, Bertram Johnson, and Acting Deputy Director of the Barbados National Standards Institution, Hayden Ryan. Lorna Jones, CBC News.
Customers in St. Philip, St. Lucie, St. Peter and St. Michael were without electricity for several hours today. But the Barbados Light and Power Company fully restored service around 3 this afternoon. Manager of Communications and Government Relations, Jackie Marshall-Clark, says the power outage was as a result of a fuel injection equipment issue which affected generating units at Spring Garden and lessened the company's generation capacity.
To manage the situation, we effected 2 measures to balance electrical load and customer demand. First, our interruptible customers were asked to operate off-grid for the period. And secondly, the load-sharing approach for our residential customers commenced from as early as 7 a.m. and then rotated to other areas at 1 p.m. to help stabilize the system. While some of the equipment faults have been repaired and customers restored, further work is in progress to complete the repairs, identify the root cause, and certainly to prevent recurrence. We wish to apologize to customers for the disruption today. We are grateful to you for your patience and for your understanding. And we wish to thank our employees as well, who worked earnestly to restore the power and to minimize the impact.
Personnel of the Barbados Defense Force have been advised to be careful in the way that they carry out their duties, especially in this social media age. This warning from Reverend Dr. Marcus Lashley during his sermon at the BDF's 40th anniversary service at the St. Matthias Anglican Church. Reverend Dr. Lashley says it's easy for a short video clip to give the wrong impression and paint the organization in a negative light.
I want to say to you as a disciplined force that you're always under scrutiny. And now with everyone having a camera and everyone being an amateur photographer, be very careful how you stand in the execution of your duties, especially in public.
Regional news now, and we begin with the big story coming out of Trinidad, where MP for Port of Spain South, Marlene McDonnell, has been fired from the cabinet a 3rd time after she was charged with several offences related to her partner's Calabar Foundation. A media release from the Communications Ministry said that the Prime Minister has advised President Paula May Weeks to revoke her appointment as the Public Administration Minister. McDonnell and her partner Michael Carew were arrested at their home last Thursday morning and have been in custody since then. They were charged either late last night or early this morning. The investigation stems from cashed checks amounting to $575,000. That's one for $375,000 and the other for $200,000. Both were allegedly issued to the Calabar Foundation, which is headed by Carew. More concerns tonight about the proposed development of the Port Royal in Kingston, Jamaica. Member of Parliament Philip Paulwell is worried that economic benefits will not trickle down to the residents.
They want to bring in cruise ships starting in January, and nobody has thought about the people of Port Royal. So I am led to believe that their aim is to land some people here, tourists, and we love tourists, to land them here and to put them on buses and take them out of Port Royal. That's not going to happen enough. There are people in Port Royal who are business-minded, who want to expand the little business they're doing. They want to be able to benefit from this opportunity. They need some funding to do so. Nobody is thinking about them.
In Guyana, the 2019 edition of Indigenous Heritage Month has officially been launched. The month will see a myriad of events being hosted by the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, including the launch of an Indigenous Language Dictionary. Here is more from Javon Vickery.
The Indigenous Peoples Heritage Month was launched under the theme, Maintaining Our Traditional Practices While Promoting a Green Economy. Heritage Month is observed from September 1 to 30 annually. The launch saw a rich display of the indigenous culture in the forms of dance, music, and craft. Minister within the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, Valerie Garrido-Lowe, speaking at the launch, alluded to the fact that while her ministry is cognizant of the need for more work to be done for Guyana's indigenous peoples, much has been done by the coalition government to empower the country's indigenous peoples, both socially and economically.